27 differences between amateurs and professional writers. What are they? And how can you learn from them as an amateur to help you become a professional writer? We're going to be looking into those 27 things, and we're starting right now. One of the big differences between the two is that amateurs tend to write down only 1/10 of what is going on inside of their mind. They can see the story happening and they write it down, but the problem is that they only write down very little, to a point where the reader really doesn't know what's happening, where their location is, what the characters look like. But a professional understands how to write just enough information, not too much, but just enough information that tells the full story, to a point where the reader can read it and know exactly what is happening, all the details and all the characters, whereas an amateur will only write about 1/10. The next thing is, amateurs tend not to use the five senses. They talk about what they see, but they rarely talk about what they smell, taste, or what's going on around them. They just basically tell you what they're seeing, whereas a professional knows how to use the five senses to make a scene come alive to a point where the reader feels as though it's happening to them. Amateurs need to work on using all five of the senses and not just sight. Another thing that amateurs tend to do is they won't read books or take advice on how to be a better writer. If they submit their novel to a literary agent and they get rejected with some advice given to them on how to be a better writer, they tend to ignore it. Whereas professionals want advice. Professionals want to know what they're doing wrong and how to become a better writer. They will take every bit of advice they can because they know it helps them become a better writer. Number 5 on the list is that professional writers tend to show, but they don't tell. They paint a picture that allows you to feel as though it's happening to you. But amateur writers do a lot of telling. They just simply tell you what is happening, but they don't show you. They don't paint a picture. As a reader, you can't see or feel because you're just being told information like you would if you were reading a newspaper. Professionals know how to make a scene come alive to a point where the reader feels as though it's happening all around them. An amateur believes that every single editor is wrong, that every bit of advice given to them is bad advice. They don't care about what editors have to say. They believe that editors are wrong, that their first ever novel is amazing, whereas professionals respect editors and know that they know what they're doing, and a professional will listen to what an editor has to say in order to help make their book better. An amateur will believe that they just have to stick with one genre, that they will, whatever they start with, that is what they have to write for the rest of their life. Whereas a professional writer will they will try to write different things. They will try romance, comedy, horror, science fiction, knowing that it helps make them a better writer. They will read everything. They will read every type of genre, believing that it helps them become a better writer. Whereas an amateur will just read the same type of book over and over again, not caring about other genres, not caring about what other genres have to help teach them. Number 8 on the list is amateurs tend to just write their first draft and then they send it off, looking for it to become published. They think that's all you have to do, right? Send it and that's it. Whereas a professional understands that the first draft is one of many, that you will have to write 2 or 3 drafts before even thinking about sending it. Whereas an amateur will write, and as soon as they're finished, they send it off. A professional writer knows how to have a tremendous amount of energy and love for writing. They will feel alive when writing. They want to write. They can't help themselves. Whereas amateurs will only write when they feel like writing. The problem with that is if you don't feel it for a couple of days, you don't do anything. Professionals know that even if you're not feeling it, you do have to keep writing every day because it's a job. Whereas amateurs will wait until they feel inspired, but that can take days or weeks. Number 10 on the list is that a writer will seek knowledge. A professional will want to learn as much as they can from every writer. If there's a book out there on how to write, they will read it, even if they're already published. An amateur doesn't want advice. They don't watch any videos on how to write, nor do they read any books on how to write. They believe they have it all in their head, right to go, and they don't need to learn from anybody. A professional will always seek better advice to help make them better. Number 11 on the list is a professional will know how to focus when writing. They won't have distractions or cell phones. They will be dedicated to what they do. They write every day because it's a job. Whereas an amateur will be talking on the phone, playing video games instead of writing. They might skip a day. They might just hang out with their friends. They're not really dedicated to writing. Whereas a professional knows it's a job and they will be dedicated every single day. Number 12 on the list is a professional will seek to have a theme while they are writing. They want to send a message. They have an idea, a message and a theme in their head while writing, and it helps them write, and it helps them write faster. Whereas an amateur really doesn't care about a theme. They'll just have the characters doing whatever, having the characters wandering around. But there's no message, no theme, no goal. And when you read a professionally written book which has a theme, you can sense it. Number 13 on the list is that a professional writer will know that the character is weak in the beginning. But as you move on, the characters become more rich, more detailed, more alive. So by the time you get to the end, the characters are at their greatest. And a professional will know to go back to the beginning and rewrite that beginning with those strong, rich characters that were weak in the beginning. Whereas an amateur will have weak characters in the beginning and get stronger at the end, but then they leave it. They don't go back and rewrite the beginning with those strong new characters. The characters appear weak and they get better as they go. But the problem is that the reader will sense these weak characters and not want to read on. But a professional knows that when you come up with strong characters at the end, you have to go back to the beginning and rewrite it with those new rich characters. Number 14 on the list is that a writer will be dedicated. They will never put off writing. They know that it's a job and they have to be focused, they have to care, and they have to keep writing on, even when they're not in the best of moods, or maybe the weather isn't great. But an amateur, if it's raining outside, maybe they won't write, but they keep putting it off. But a professional knows that you have to keep writing and you can't stop and you can't put it off for a week or two and just hang out. A professional sees it as a job and is dedicated. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out part 2 of this video series on the 27 things on the differences between a professional and an amateur writer. I'm going to leave a link to the video in the description down below, and you can click on it and watch part 2.